This is
Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. I represent Bahamian people. I from Nassau, Bahamas, big and bro. Boy, I from Dayton, bro. Right between West and Augusta, both meet days call it Wilkinson Street. Manners and respect was like a sign blank check. It's not the quick to disrespect. You see, this life in the ghetto never easy. So many hungry days break telling greed. I doing the best I can, trying to turn my dollar to 100 grand. I represent the ghetto people from Nassau, Bahamas, big up Dayton, bro. Boy, I from Dayton, bro. Talk no bribe or no joke. If you find fire, you definitely find smoke. Dayton, bro. Boy, I from Dayton.
Good night, Bahamas. And welcome to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. I am your host, Valentino, a.k.a. Scoochie Scrooge or Scroogey, and I have many more nicknames than those. I'm your host of the talk show, Inside the Inner City, that premieres on Guardian Radio every 6:30 to 8 p.m. Telephone numbers tonight are 323-6232, 325-4316, 325-4259, and powered by BTC at 422GR96. You can listen on Guardian Crest 969 on the cable channel. And I would like again say a very good night to each and every one of you. I hope you're enjoying the time wherever you are. Try to have a wonderful time tonight. Drink some beers, eat some nice chicken wings, It's good that when you wake for a whole week or so, that when Friday comes, you go and relax yourself after a hard week of work, because a lot of us are very stressful now, and sometimes you just need to relax in a good environment where there's no one who annoying you when you want to have a good time. I would like to say to all my callers who have been calling on the show and on Guardian Radio, have been doing an extremely great job. We've been having wonderful conversation. We talk about things that matters, but we talk about it in such a delicate and informative way that we can have conversations. So I want to congratulate all of the callers who are just making a smooth transition on the show on their advice they give towards the conversation we have on the show. Okay, our producer in studio today is Mr. Ali Roll. On today's show, we're going to talk about some of the news that is circulating last week. Grocers present proposal to government. And then we'll talk about some other stuff. Consumer price cool in August remain elevated over last year. This is some of the news that's been in Nassau. Got some stuff for the Tribune. But I'd like to piggyback last week on the topic we were talking about the injunction on Abaco and shantytowns around the country, and what is the response from our government officials. We having mixed reactions or mixed between the Minister of Immigration, Keith Bell. The Prime Minister just weighed in, I think a day or so on the matter. He made a statement, said that we don't have a crisis in the country. So we have a mixed perception between the general public and the government officials. And we're trying to find out if the citizens of the country are right and feel threatened by the influx of illegal immigrants flooding the country. And then government officials, when we talk on social media, they give us their response based on their government. And like I said, government is never going to admit when they're wrong. Sometimes they do, it's very rare, and they're always going to take up for government. That's just the way it is. You could be in opposition all you want. You could say all the good stuff, but when you get in government, it's a different ball game because you're governor, you was in opposition. Those matters you were speaking on when you was opposition, you can't speak on no more when you're in government because now you have to be able to rule. You have to understand how government run, what you can be involved in, what you can say, and what you can do to assist the Bahamian people. So it's a completely different picture, being opposition, speaking out, and being the government of the country. So when you inherit the government of the country, you would see where, for instance, let me give you a prime example. I think, Coalition of Independence, Lincoln being who ran the last general election with a slate of candidates who took a storm, they were talking a lot of positive stuff that affected many Bahamians in the country. And he spoke on a matter that was important, like, for instance, the Crown Land. And he spoke on that, and he said, this is the Bahamian Crown Land, and, Bahamian people should be able to squat on the land just like Haitian nationals. And we had some Bahamian people out there, who were living there for many, many years without disturbance. But, Mr. Bain seems to be someone who feels like this is his, how should I say, his portfolio, which is good to bring awareness to the general public, but it's how you bring awareness and how you can get people to be a part of something that is great, but sometimes it leads to your attitude towards the general public. And I'm not saying this particular and to nobody in particular, I'm just saying this on the whole because people would like to join the Coalition of Independence, but many people are saying that because of how people present themselves, it's more like it's a bully thing. You're speaking on something that is affecting us in the country, and you're speaking on topics that are affecting the country. But at the same time, you're getting yourself in problems that irate many Bahamians when it comes to the way you could be in the right, the organization could be in the right, but it's the way you present yourself. Getting locked up, and the police officer could have been wrong. But anyway, let me finish what I was saying. And he talked about the land, and he stated that's the Crown Land. And then, we were all hyped up, and he told people to go and get a piece of ground land according to information, or I could be wrong on saying that, and squat on it just like the Haitian nationals. If you could remember the Honorable Minister Warren Miller, he spoke on it when he was in opposition. And he was talking about the natural resources in the Crown Land himself, and he spoke on it. And as opposition now, when he got in government, he had to change his stance just a little bit, but that's the part of the game of politics. And when Mr. Bain, made a statement, and then we saw where the government of the Bahamas, that's what I tell people, the Crown Land is the government of the Bahamas, not the Bahamian people. The government of the Bahamas gives the Crown Land to whoever wants to give to, and that comes directly from the Prime Minister. And getting back to what I was saying, and you would see where Mr. Bain was having an altercation with a Defense Force officer on the Crown Land. He's up in the officer's face, and the officer's up in his face. And, it's a back and forth. Those kind of antics, many people would love to join the Coalition of Independence, but those kind of antics, people are not looking for that in a leader, especially someone who is a pastor, party leader in a democratic society, and an activist. And like I said, he make very valid points. But many people out there who I have a conversation with, they just come up with, or sometimes we just be walking, they say, man, he needs to take his time on the way he present himself. He makes some valid points, but then he rallies the people, and it could be in a positive but more negative way towards violence, when you're speaking about the Haitian nationals and when you're speaking to the defense force and when you're speaking to the police and et cetera, and especially when you're clergy, when you're a pastor. So people are kind of confused and you're firing gunshots, which is illegal. But people don't want to see someone like that from a leader because they're saying that if a leader acts like that, especially being a pastor, especially someone who was a talk show, was a community leader, and a leader on the whole, and make some very valid points of what's affecting us in the country. Not that many other people are making these valid points, okay? There are many people who are making these valid points on what is affecting us in the country when it comes to squatting on land, when it comes to we feel it's a overload of nationals coming to the country. Many of us speak on that. So getting back to the story, getting back to what I was trying to say, then you would see where the government response, and the government response to when Lincoln was speaking on the Crown Land issue, and he was telling Bahamian people to go there and get the Crown Land, squat on it, etc. And this is our land. Then the government came out, and if you listen to the Minister of National Security, you listen to the Minister of, I can't remember who it was, but I was thinking it was Juan Miller, and you heard them make a statement. They said you have a certain amount of days to leave the Bahamas government Crown Land alone. Not the Bahamian people, the Bahamas government. So we going from the Bahamian people's Crown Land to the government of the Commonwealth Crown Land. And then they're still telling people to this date they're going to have to leave the premises. Our government is looking for a way to properly find, to move these particularly Bahamians who have been squatting there for so many years. But what, like I was saying, that's how it ended up. You speak on one end as opposition when you get in government, you speak on government, because many people don't understand opposition is different than governance. And you heard the Minister of National Security brought the Defense Force officer out there, he brought the police out there, and they told people who reside in there for 10, 15, 20 years that they'd have to leave. And most people said, those people were doing quite fine, without the uproar. But since the publicity got put in the back of the residence where these people would live, the Crown Land, where they were squatting on, and all this noise, and it arrayed the politicians and all. And it caused them the action on the people who were squatting on the land because of the attitude of a few who were intimidating the defense force, intimidating the police, intimidating the government. You can't beat the government. I don't care how much you sue. You could go before the courts and, you could win a couple of dollars, but you can't beat the government. You're wasting your time. You're wasting the court's time. You're wasting everyone else's time. So, that's what it led to. So I just like to say, leaders, when you're leading, you could get a lot of people to be a part of your organization, but it's how you conduct yourself. People don't want to see no one firing gun, talking about hate. Yes, the Haitian nationals are here and they're breaking the law. Yes, we have a crisis, and many people want to be a part of the coalition of independence. But like I said, firing off gun, standing in the police face, and that attitude is for a person off the streets. You understand? For them to be carrying on that type of manner. Not for a person who's professional and looking to be the next government of the day. And you're saying to us, as the general public, that if you vote and you elect me, that we're going to be better than the rest. Well, if your attitude is showing what you're showing now, what people are saying, you can imagine if you achieve power. So my advice to the Coalition of Independence, this is some advice. Be respectful to the police. Be respectful to the defense force officer. Be respectful to the leaders, because some words come out of people's mouth who say there's pastors and Christians. It's very confusing, They hear some words would come out of people who say the leaders, and they're talking to the general public when, and I mean, that's no exception from me. But I'm not claiming to be a Christian, okay? So that's different. I'm not claiming to be a pastor. I'm a community activist and community leader. I'm not a talker. I do stuff, to benefit my community. but I'm very respectful on how I talk to the police or how I talk to authority. Even when I'm on radio, I might say something against a leader, but it's in reference to what everyone else have seen in the country or what everyone have heard in the country that I speak on. Just like everyone else hearing it, I would speak on it and I'd give my 2 cents. So be careful as leaders, okay? Because you're talking some very positive stuff. Like I said, other people are talking about it too. You have the media, present yourself better, you know? And like I said, Juan Miller was in opposition, and then when he get in government, he is on government. And, you know, they told people to vacate the property. And all that was because people felt that people now have to vacate the ground land they were squatting on when they had no problem before all the uproar come up with the ground land. Now they have to vacate because we irate certain people, you know, trying to be leader and trying to become the next leader of the country or trying to get yourself in politics. You have to have a better tone of voice. There's other people out there who don't like the type of attitude, even though it's a positive attitude in the way you're talking. Like I said before, you're still doing some things like a common criminal, like someone with a shooting gun at somebody, and the way your facial expression changing and all that stuff. So, you know, just present yourself more better, because people are not going to support, especially when they see those things. And like I said, they say you're going to be better. You have to prove that. And you prove that by being at the best of your behavior. Okay. It's not hard being the leader of a country, you know. Being the prime minister, being the minister of national security, or being the governor general. But for those who are seeking to be leaders in the country, and when you achieve that goal, like the Prime Minister of the Commodore Bahamas, the Honorable Brave Davis, and you know he raised the minimum wage, and that be coming into effect in about 2 months' time going into the new year, and you would see the pushback what he's getting from the grocers and their proposal to government. So it's very hard being a leader when you try to do the best thing for the country, but it's also good to understand that you would always have opposition that would speak on these matters. And the merchants who are talking to the Prime Minister, who are not really physically upset, they're just saying, you know, it's going to cost them to pay the workers. They're prepared to up value on social service voucher. Social service vouchers what the government was giving around the pandemic, and they're still giving the people in social service, the less fortunate, and they would go to these grocery stores, especially Super Value, and they would get their items from a grocery slip from social service. So I don't understand why the grocers would be upset, but it's a step in the right direction. So I want to compliment the Prime Minister of the country for increasing the minimum wage. I hope that a proposal of the government can be negotiated and accepted. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to talk about a little part about the Haitian nationals in Abaco, which has doubled in the last 3 years. We're going to take this call, and then we're going to go to our topic. Go ahead, caller. You're on Inside the Inner City.
Hey, good night, Scoochie.
Good night to you.
Yeah, Scoochie, something you said earlier when you talking about when you said about the government and the opposition, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Well, the government and opposition, they are the same, right? And let me tell you why I could say that, right? Because the name of the government is Her Majesty's government, right?
Yes, you're correct.
And the name of the opposition is
the official opposition.
It's not Her Majesty's no more. Sorry, it's His Majesty's.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
it's
sir.
His Majesty's opposition, right?
Yes, sir.
So here is the reason why, Scrooge, when opposition are in opposition, advocating and are close to the ear of the Bahamian people, right? And then they can hear everything that the Bahamian people are saying, and then like you say, expression, and then we have these leaders with these smiling faces, right?
Yes, sir.
While they're in opposition, right?
Yes, sir.
And then once they become government, then they put on a different face.
Yes, sir.
Right? They put on a face that you didn't even know they had when they were in opposition, right? And then we see it happen. We see it happen back and forth, right? So this is why the country is in the stagnation, in my view, right?
Yes, sir.
Because we need not to have we need not to encourage the same type of leaders coming telling us things that really ain't beneficial to the country, right? For instance, right, the next thing you was talking about, I thank God they increased the minimum wage, because at least now that it could go higher from there, right?
Yes.
But when we put it in real, when we be real, Gucci, and see how the cost of living is today,
Yes, sir.
right? And how everything is rising, right? Electricity, right? And
Cable, etc.
you know,
Gas,
gas,
etc.
and everything is rising, right? When these same persons would have to benefit from this increase, which is good, right? And then there's other tax increase and hikes is levied on them or put on them, right? They can find themselves right back in the same position, right? Because while you got more money, you still end up with more taxes
More
you
debt.
have to pay,
More debt. Yes.
right? So we need meaningful injection into society, so that we could say that your behemoths could strive,
Yes.
right? Because with time we start benefiting from the Bahamas as behemoths. It's been too long,
Too long.
right? And we need radical situations to occur in this country for it to change, because we can't come there no more with on no platter. Because why? We can just continue rehearsing the same thing. If we continue doing the same thing, it can't change like that, Scoogy.
I agree with you.
You have to do something different to show that we are not insane people, that we ain't crazy, right? Because this is what have a lot of the young men in this country insane today. Because why? They find themselves in a nation
Stagnation, where there's no future.
what ain't growing.
No future for them.
And it ain't no meaningful future for them.
Yes. You're right. You're right.
It ain't no meaningful future for family.
You're right. Family structure. Yes.
In this country.
You correct. You correct.
Come on. So, the leaders we need leaders. The leaders will come in. They have to be leaders with ideas that could revolutionize the whole Commonwealth of Bahamas, carrying the behemoth with it.
Yes. I agree.
It can no longer be but just bring in this investor and they can give us some jobs and hoop hooray, we get to, it can't go. That ain't working no more, Scoochie.
I agree. It's not working.
All right. I want to see I want to see a man like you on your own radio station in the next 5 years, man, Scoochie, man.
Yes, I understand. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Growth. Yeah, man. Join the show.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much, and you made some valid points. And again, the callers, they do an excellent job of calling in. And, he used to also, not directly, but he was talking about the minimum wage increase. And if I'm correct, interpreting his words, he didn't say it, but I understand where he was coming from, the caller. He was also saying, even though it's increased, it still is not enough, if I'm correct, that the government has made available with pay increase. And as much as I would like this, I'm not going to defend it, because I understand exactly what the caller is saying. Yes, it's needed, but it's still a little bit too much. And the reason why, under this administration, Mr. Bravis had to take the backbone and as a leader, and to take this step, because it ain't what it is that we think about governance. Don't think that you could say some things in opposition, right? But when you get the government, there are some things that is going to block you. But you still could carry on and fulfill your mandate. But at the same time, with the pay increase, okay? I think it went up from 210 to what, 250 or 260, right? And already the Prime Minister made this known to the general public and to the business owners in the country. And you see that they gave a sharp response. And their response is, let me just read it. The Retail Groceries Association is asking the government to consider further alleviating the burden on the most vulnerable in the Bahamas by eliminating the 10% value-added tax on the bread basket items. Now, see, when the Prime Minister is trying to do good for the country, you would have association like what we're talking about now. Now, they're not wrong, because it's all about money and economics, and we might not understand how things work. So the government is thinking about doing something good for the Bahamian people. At the same time, the business people, you know, it's all about them being able to have a balance and to make a profit. So anytime they feel the profit is going to be affected, even though it's good that the Prime Minister and the government is deciding to increase the minimum wage, it's a pushback. So you have little differences there. Reason why. Anyone could remember this. The last administration, under the leadership of the Honorable Hubert Alexander Menace, he threatened the Life at Key Association on the fact that he was going to tax them, okay? And because he said, you know, he wanted to tax on the rich and be able to balance it off with the poor. And if you listen closely, the very next day we saw a press conference where the Life at Key business owners, and that's, I think what it was, they gave a statement with there must be 6 or 7 lawyers, or 10 lawyers, or probably even 20 lawyers when they was given an interview. And they say they would not fall in the demand of the Prime Minister and what he's asking for. In fact, they are getting ready to boycott the Bahamas, you know, and close down their business, which they own numerous businesses across the country. You're talking people who own all the beachfront homes, some might own hotels, hardware stores, Wendy's, Kentucky, and all kind of business owners. And they said they was going to boycott the Bahamas, you know, and close down their business, and probably, you know, the very next after they gave that statement on the news and radio, we heard the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Hubert Menace, took back his talk and say he was no longer looking to increase the taxes on association. So this, what's happened, even though the Prime Minister is taking a big step, he upset a lot of people in the country. Okay? He upset a lot of people in the country. Some people say they didn't know, you know, how they're going to be able to manage this with the COVID, coming up with the COVID-19. So let me see if I can read something. The recommendation, so they make a recommendation. They said that by eliminating the 10% value-added tax on bread basket items, that recommendation is included in a proposal. The association sent a letter to the Prime Minister on Wednesday. They They continue their objections to the announcement margin changes on 38 grocery items first announced by the Prime Minister in his national address on October 1st. Association President Philip Penelope advised the Prime Minister that the group has concluded an exhaustive and extensive canvassing of more than 130 national members and concluded that its proposal would grant relief to the most vulnerable and not result in the demise of the retail grocery business. So they come up with a suggestion on how it will not crash. So it seems that they're working. But also remember, it's very difficult for the Prime Minister. So if the Prime Minister of the country right now is to say, okay, that increase in minimum wage is at $2.60, let me think about taking that, like people would suggest. People would say, you know what, that ain't nothing what we get, the little $40 or $50 actually ain't nothing what we get. That ain't nothing we get, he could do better than that. See, you could say that because you don't understand how government run and you don't understand what you're going to find in the opposition, people who are going to speak out and not agree with you, even though you intend to do good. You see, you could say that. So you can imagine now if the Prime Minister right now say he's going to take minimum wage right now and say he's going to take it to put it at $450 to $500. What you think going to happen in the country? Now, mind you, if he make that decision, he says that, he would be out of office within a month time. He wouldn't have a job. He wouldn't have a job. You know, we'd be chanting, oh, yes, that's a good thing. We love this Prime Minister and all that. But the business owner's not going to love him. The banker's not going to love him. No employee is going to love him in this country. So that's how things run in the country. So you got to be careful. And the caller made a good point. He said that, you know, it's a step in the right direction, and it will increase. See, Brave did it. Someone increased it before him. A previous Prime Minister, I can remember, it was 150, and they increased it. Now Brave increased it. Now, if he's successful and been in the government again, he probably could increase it again. You know, and then the next Prime Minister under the leadership, it could be the PLP or the Free National Movement. They, in the next 10, 15 years, they would increase it. That's the only way it's going to get up there. It's not going to be overnight where we're going to say, we're going to increase it to $500 a week. It's not going to happen. Because you're going to always find the opposition, which is the business owners and small business owners, because some always want to make a profit. Could you imagine a gas station, a pump attendant? You know, he done making like $250, $260. I mean, he was making $210 or $220. Now he get an increase of $200. I mean, an increase of about $40, $50. So his paycheck now is what? $280, $290, right? So that's fairly good, you know, even though it's a little, but we must remember that the Bahamas pays the most wages with all the countries in the world, especially the Caribbean country. We are number one with the $210. We are number one. Okay, so we must give account for that, even though we're the richest Caribbean country in the world. So we're number one. So we have to give that in the account. And like I said, there would always be an opposition. You know, we might say that little $40, $50, you know, increase. But listen to me. Ain't no right thing can be aiming. Or the Prime Minister is going to increase that to no $500. It's going to be increased over the course of years. And advocating for people to bring up the cost of living. I just want to say that. Let me just read something else again in the Nassau Guardian. Consumer prices climb modest in August compared to July at, what did it say? 0.1%. The latest governmental data shows, which represents the slightest month-to-month increase since February of this year. Nevertheless, that slight uptick still translates to a 6.3% increase year-on-year, the second largest such year-on-year increase recorded in 2022, which continues to see record inflation and there appears to be no end in sight for the war in Ukraine and other infiltration pressures. Consumer prices climbed US percent from June to July, which was an astonishing 7% increase from year to year, according to latest consumer price index released by the Bahamas National Statistical Institute, BNSI. That was the most significant jump month over month recorded since beginning January 2020, according to the report, which only goes as far back as January. Yes. So I just wanted to say that. So it's the right recession. It's the right direction with the government increasing the salary increase. But like I said, there's always going to be an objection. In case anyone out there is listening, you need to understand that. If you put it $500, we won't have no Brave Davis as prime ministers in this country. To small business, the Bahama, the Life Key, all the businesses in the country would get together and say, get this crazy man out of jail. Because nowhere in the world we're going to pay a gas station pump attendant $500. No way. Or we're going to pay a shelf boy $350 or $450. No way. That'll take time, you know. So many people would say, if I get in power, I'd do this and I'd do this. I'd do this and I'd do that. You wouldn't do crap. The only thing you do is fall in line. All right? Understand how government goes. Okay? All right. So, let me read. So, last week we were talking about if the Bahamas has a crisis. And I want to discuss this with the audience out there. Is the Bahamas in crisis? We couldn't come to a conclusion on crime. We had the Minister of National Security, Ben Monroe, weighing in. We had the Police Commissioner, Clayton Fernando, saying we are not in a crisis. And the Minister of National Security, he said we've been there from a little while. So there's a little back and forth, but I think both of them mean well. There's some nice programs coming into effect. Far as the Ministry of National Security, that's going to be very beneficial to the Bahamian public. There's going to be a lot of solution. We're having parole. We're having a new prison being built, you know. So there's a lot of good things happening as part of the Ministry of National Security. You have a good team, and one Dr. David Allen and Kiva Bettel, and many persons like myself, Terry Delancey, and Cleopatra Christie, and a few others, Barry Russell, you know, from the Road to Peace. You know, we're all part of the advisory board, and we've been given some really, really good advice on how we can help the country and steer it forward. And we're making our presentation to the minister and his ministry on behalf of the Bahamian people. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So we also had, that was the crime aspect, and we all know that crime has been under control, and we have been having a crime crisis for many, many years. It's just that the fact that we have settled, we become the norm. 100 murders don't confuse, how I should say that, 100 murders is a crisis for the Bahamas, but we've been having that for over 10 years now, and we've had many other murders before the 10 years. And I think we've become stagnated, we've become used to it. So we wouldn't even know what a crisis is in the country, because we're used. 100 murders is not a crisis. If 100 murders is not a crisis, 100 plus murders is not a crisis. No shooting is not a crisis. I don't know what a crisis is. Okay, we're having Bahamians lose their life left, right, and center in the country. Innocent people losing their life. People not so innocent losing their lives. Bystanders are losing their life. Guys shooting at them, miss their target. I hit someone who's sitting in the car, or a young lady go into a church service. So, all of this crisis that we're facing in the country. And then last week we were talking about the immigration side of it. And we saw where there was an investigation And it was reported to the Ministry of Immigration, which is spearheaded by the Honorable Keith Bell. And like I said, Keith Bell is doing a fantastic job. I like the way how he has humbled himself in office compared to the last time he was elected as a member of parliament. This time around, he's quiet and he's doing a fantastic job. He made reference to the immigration problem in the country, and he made a statement stating that there's not a crisis in the country. Me, the Bahamian people who live in the country, especially Nassau, we live on the Family Island, we see with our own eyes and we see that there's a crisis. Reason why the government wouldn't say it's a crisis, because they don't want to set the country in a panic mode, and they really want to be professional about how they speak on these matters, because you're not just dealing with illegal immigrants, you're dealing with the international committee, you're dealing with the UNESCO, you're dealing with the UN, United Nations, and the Bahamas have signed on with agreements, and those agreements are for humanitarian reasons. You treat people humanely once they're in your country, even if they're here illegally. We have that at the detention center, that's a part of our law, and these the laws that we sign on when we sign on to the UN or CARICOM. You see, so the government have to balance out with the international law, besides the Bahamian law. See, our Bahamian immigration law, but when we sign on the CARICOM law becomes a part of our law, and we have to be able to abide by those laws. And one of those laws states that we give them health care, we take care of them, we feed them, and we do etc. And Keith Bell made a statement that, there's not a crisis in the country. And then we have the MP for, I think, let me just read it, the MP, Mr. Pinder. So let me read it. The number of undocumented Haitians living on Abaco are closing in on the Bahamian population on the island. Central and South Abaco MP John Pinder warned in The Guardian a few days ago while calling for stiffer fines for people who employ undocumented migrants. I'll come to you right now. Let me just read this first. It has been growing for many decades and is only growing more, Pinder told the Nassau Guardian. There's a significant number, I would not say how many, but it is significant number. It could possibly match the Bahamian population in Abaco now. When asked for the estimated of the island's population, he replied, that's kind of a hard one to say because we are still having an influx or a return of Abaconians who have left after Hurricane Dorian. We have others who are there throughout the Bahamas for work purposes. So I could not exactly put a finger on that, but I'd say more than 10,000. The numbers are closing in on the Bahamians. Let me go to page A5. Population Abaco. Pinder said the growing undocumented Haitian population is a concern for Abaco residents. In August, the then Haitian charged with the affair, Anthony Boutos, claimed that there are 150,000 living in the Bahamas, which has an estimated population of the Bahamas has an estimated population of 400,000 people. He provided no basis for the estimate. According to a 2000 International Organization for Migration study, there were an estimated 30,000 or to 60,000 Haitians in the Bahamas who are not well integrated into Bahamian society. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the dangers of people coming here, they don't know what the national anthem is, they don't know who the prime minister is, they don't know what the national bird is, they don't know nothing about the country, but they have Bahamian passport. You don't know who you're allowing in your country who come on the boats because, there's a big problem in the capital of Haiti, Port-au-Prince. People could live in that country, slip on a ship, come to the Bahamas, set up shop, and become one of the biggest drug leaders in the country. And they are free access because they are not afraid of our laws because we are not enforcing our laws. Okay? We have an injunction on Abaco for the injunction section, and people are billing in Abaco. You know, I'm going to hold a thought right there. Caller, you there? Caller left. They have an injunction in Abaco. Now we have the minister of Abaco, and he is stating now that there could be close to 10,000 Haitian nationals, undocumented. For those who are documented, they are part of the Bahamian society. I don't know if they have citizenship or residency. We have no problem with those particular people. But for those who come here undocumented, we have a problem, you guys, because we, as the caller stated earlier, that we are hurting. We who are being living in this country. I'm 49 years of age, and I don't think I've seen the Bahamas the way I wanted to see it. I see a lot of young men out there who have lost their minds. The caller stated that many persons out there have lost their minds because they can't see the future. The Bahamas is one of the wealthiest countries in the world and one of the wealthiest Caribbean countries in the world. We have a high unemployment rate in this country, which is unacceptable in our country. So we're going to take this call, and then we're going to go back to the topic. Go ahead, caller. You're on Inside the City.
Mr. Brown.
Yes, sir. Good night.
How's everything?
Everything is fine.
Okay, in reference to the legal immigrants, right, and everything else, right? You know what? I mean, it's so sad. I know you've been into the system a lot, Mr. Brown, and you would understand, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. The difference between how history would prove that there's a difference between how they deal with natives and how they deal with tourists and illegal immigrants.
Yes.
I'm sure your history would have proven to you that how they relaxed everything for these individuals, whether they be tourists, guests, or anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
You had tourists who broke the curfew during
COVID-19.
During the COVID-19 and was let go free.
Yes.
You didn't have one Bahamian out of 2,000 persons that was arrested and gone before the court and got
A fine.
discharged without being fined or sentenced.
Mm-hmm.
None.
You're
But
right.
they had guests came from the States and they allowed them, the judge or the magistrate allowed them to go.
Yes, sir.
So I only say that to say this, right? This immigration problem is it's being ignored.
Yes, it is.
Ain't no such thing as they can't control this. Ain't no such thing exists. Let me tell you why. Right?
Go ahead, sir.
They speaking about hiring people, more immigration officers. I don't know what kind of game or how stupid these people think we may be, right? The mere fact is this. You hire immigration officers because you need a crew for you. And maybe they're your friends, who knows, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, guess what? There's no way in the world you need to spend $2 million or $3 million on boats. Let me tell you why. I don't need $2 million worth of police cars to patrol New Providence, which is almost one of the smallest islands in the Bahamas.
So you want to go to Abaco?
Pardon?
You want them to go to Abaco?
Pardon?
No, go ahead, sir.
You don't need all of those cars for that. It's not that we need more people, Just that the people who are there now don't weigh a penny on the dollar.
I understand.
And all they doing is I don't want them try to bribe you. I used to wear bribe, Mr. Brown, even though I know you ain't going to let it happen. I don't want you to let them allow you to come on this station and pretty things up for them.
No, I pretty enough. I didn't finish.
I'm not saying
finished.
you're doing that,
No, I know.
Now, when you listen to me carefully, I'm not saying you're doing that.
No, I know.
All I'm saying is, I know you don't pull punches. You said it as it is. But while you're on this station, I want you to continue to be serious and don't allow these people to influence you.
Yes, sir.
To talk, to back them up in their nonsense they doing.
Yes, sir.
Watch this. I sure you been into the system, Mr. Brown. Watch this. You dealt with police officers who kicked you, punched you for no reason.
Yes.
And I sure you been around a lot of your friends who got beaten by the police and abused by the system. I sure you been around that.
Yes.
I say that to say this. You hear them always using this word, oh, you gotta be humane, oh, you gotta treat people with dignity. Mr. Brown,
Yes,
be
sir.
honest and say this, man. There's no such thing exists in the Bahamas when it comes down to Bahamian being abused by the system.
Oh, go on,
Nobody
Lord.
speak up, no, pardon?
You go ahead, sir. I ain't glad you. Go ahead.
Nobody speak up for Bahamians when they are abused.
Okay.
Nobody. The only person speak up is you, Mr. Brown.
Yes.
I heard you speak about when the commissioner of police said that he's going to crack down on persons committing crimes and doing things wrong. You got on him. I remember when you said, hold on now, Commissioner. Don't forget you got some bad apples there,
Yes.
which you need to deal with first.
Yes, sir.
And when you deal with them, then you can come back and talk to me.
You're correct, sir.
Okay? I heard when you said that.
Yes, sir.
And when you said that, I was so proud to hear you say that.
Thank you very much,
Let me
sir.
tell you something, Mr. Brown. I can be short. These people know, so they use the Bahamians as scapegoats and take us for a bunch of stupid fools. Right? Wayne Monroe sitting right down there, the Prime Minister of Ukraine, who under attack doing a better job than him. Okay?
Yes,
The
sir.
Prime Minister who in Ukraine, do you tell him when you have that meeting? The
Yes, sir.
Prime Minister in Ukraine is under attack by weapons.
Oh, Lord.
By,
Yes,
by,
sir.
by drones, they under attack, doing
Yes,
a
sir.
better job than him.
Yes, sir.
He claimed these people are unarmed. He claimed I don't like this. I would like to see they take up arms. All the police probably jump on a boat and head out.
Oh, yes, sir. I understand what you're saying, sir.
You'd have to run behind them and say, "Some of y'all gotta stay."
Yes, sir. I understand.
You know
Yes,
why I
sir.
say that? Because
ahead.
Mr. Brown, these people playing games with our freedom.
Yes, sir.
They know what they're doing is wrong.
Yes.
If that was you, Mr. Brown,
I agree, sir.
Mr. Brown, if that was you in the back there in KFC building something in the back, they'd come there and they'll beat you and kick your door down, stomp you to the ground, punch you in the public, and it'll be caught on camera, and nothing will come out of it.
Yes, sir.
And you know that, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, you agree. I can comment when you finish.
Don't let them people pull these kind of stand, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, I was going to get to the bottom. Thank you
One
very
more
much.
thing. One
Go
more
ahead,
thing,
go
Mr.
ahead.
Brown. One more thing. Michael Pentard. I heard you on the show, you know.
Yes, sir.
Michael Pentard, right? Who want to be Prime Minister one day.
Yes,
Now
sir.
he's coming to Mr. Brown, the honest man who's trying to be honest in life.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Pentard coming to you to tell you to promote something that he's interested in doing in the community. Tell Mr. Michael Pentard, if he want any promotion, tell him your ads are the sales office right there and let him promote it that way. I don't like that, Mr. Brown.
Yes, sir.
You doing a good job, Mr. Brown. You doing a good job. Anytime politicians try to get next to you, they only get next to you for one reason, and that is to hope that you can help them have support to win the election, and then they can duck you afterwards.
No, for me, I don't get myself involved in politics. That's just for the station.
Pardon?
That's an art for the station.
So you say that's
Yeah, that's an art from the station.
that's what he paying for.
Yeah, that's what he paid for.
Thank you very much for clearing that up.
Yeah, you know I don't mix with that. I don't do that. No, that's not for me.
Pardon?
No, I said that's not for me. You know, I don't let no political leaders get close to me for their gain because I understand the detriment and the hard work that needs to
Let
be
me tell
achieved
you
in
how
the
far I was
country.
following you from when you was on Debbie Bartlett show.
Okay.
Remember? Let me remind you about something. I can let go because I know
Go
I'm
ahead.
also going. I'll remind you about something. Remember when you first was trying to get a spot so you could house children and someone gave you a spot and then called the people and tell them you was on the spot?
Yes, sir.
You
Yes, sir.
remember that, right?
The community center.
Huh?
The community center. Yes, when the
Okay,
people
so
in
you
the
know I've
neighborhood.
been following
Yes.
you a long time.
Yes, sir. Now we have a brand new state-of-the-art community center. And look at that. And now we have a brand new state-of-the-art community center.
Right. So you was on the ground struggling from that time.
Yes,
I don't
sir.
want these jokey politicians. They know they're destroying this country.
Yes, sir.
And I don't want them to try to use your show
Yes,
to
sir.
do nonsense.
Yes,
'Cause,
sir.
you doing a good job.
Thank
and
you.
anytime, I ain't gonna tell you the way to lie. Anytime someone put politicians in their good way,
Yeah.
it becomes the work of the devil.
Yeah.
And I can
understand.
leave on that. Thank you very much. And
I
keep up the
understand.
good work, Mr. Brown.
Yes, and I like the word of advice, but
All
I
right.
want to guarantee people out there, I'm across the board an honest person. No one can bribe me, okay, because I'm not about money. I ain't about the publicity. My grandmother brought me up this way, and that running our family. If you look at my aunt and my uncle, Barry Brennan and Lillian Brennan and Yvonne Brennan, they just persons who follow the Ten Commandments. They live accordingly to the Father, and there's no corruption in them. You know, they live in the same house, and they have never had an argument, brothers and sisters. My grandmother left, and she left some funds. There was no argument over the funds. You understand? So corruption is not a part of me because I learned something from that. That's why I never was able to steal or like people things or go into armed robbery, etc. The only thing I got myself involved with is I was very violent. Okay, we're going to take this next call. Go ahead, caller, and I'm going to comment on when the caller talked about humanity. Go ahead, caller. You're on Inside in the City if you're still there.
Mr. Brown, how you doing?
Good night to you, sir.
Good, man. Listen, I think the retailers really should work with the government on this one.
Yes, sir.
I think during the lockdown, they really recorded record profits, man. So what's wrong with sort of working with the government for a few months to give some relief to
I
the
agree.
most vulnerable?
Yes, sir.
But moving forward, I think the government should look at doing something for each community. You know, through the urban centers, they should consider doing a consensus of each resident consensus. So everyone that lives where, who they are, elderly, who live in each house, and then from that through the urban centers create a storehouse. So a storehouse, right? So each urban center will have a stores attached to it.
Wow.
But during this consensus, you find out what businesses are in that community that can contribute to the storehouse.
Wow.
So in the event of natural disaster, you will have a resident consensus. You know who live in the house. You know if it's elderly, if we need to get them out of there in the event of disaster. You know if single mothers there and they need help. And then you could have a system in each community. You know, let's say if it's Baintown, they have their storehouse. So the single mother can have a card. If she needs something, she can go there or do it online and just pick it up. Nobody know, you don't have to give any information or who she is.
Wow.
But I think it should be doing in conjunction with social service. But the reason I'm saying you should have the business involved, each businesses in that community can give to that storehouse.
Yes.
So whether it's clothes, whether it's food, and then once you have a consensus of who lives in each community and each house specifically, you'll get an idea how to help people effectively. I mean, that's what I'm thinking.
No, you're making sense. You're making sense.
You'll have a lunch program. If single mom and she can't get lunch, the stalls might have a kitchen.
Yes, it makes sense.
So people who need to eat, and then business people would be more than happy to contribute and give back to their community.
I agree.
And then through the urban center, you have, I think, the police officers and defense force, and then it can be extended to people who need just a day work. Businesses can go there and apply their businesses. Hey, look, I'm looking for someone to just keep my area clean, so they can get to work and we can pay through that center. So the center can get some from administration and then the people can get paid that same day. It may not be a long term, but I think we need to start to look how are we going to fix problem moving forward.
Yes, sir.
Even through that center, we can talk about kids, how they're going to get to school.
Yes.
They can meet to that center in the community and the bus can take them to school and drop them back.
Wow.
I mean, so many things. People who are blind, you can have vehicles that can take them out to go to the banking. And, I think we need to start to see what we can do as community to help and get everybody involved.
Yes.
Rather than, it's like Alof now. It's like the government do everything, but if you get people involved, people really want to get involved to help each other.
Yes.
You know what I often think about?
Yes, sir.
Why was I born in this country?
Good
I didn't pick you as my brother, as a Bahamian. God ordained it that way. So if I want to help, I want to give back, I want to say, hey, I got no place else to go.
No place else to go but radio.
So I think we need to be serious-minded and genuinely care about each other.
Yes.
Because when you hurt, I hurt. And people say that superficially, they're like, oh, I'm there and you there. But the reality is, if I need food and you over there with the high wall and my kids need food, boy, I might come over. You know what I mean? So let's see how we can work together and you know, and each community. I think the stalls should be in each community, and then even if a board run it, but I'm guaranteed there's businesses in every community
Would like
that
to be
will
a part.
contribute, and people will give to that. Even the farming, you could have a farm store there every weekend. People do their own backyard farming, and you can do trading there, and some of the proceeds can go into that to sustaining that. But anyway, that's my 5 cents.
Your 5 cents was awesome, sir.
All right.
Because you're talking about finding with all the businesses in the community. Because one business could be selling tennis, one could be selling kitchen utensils, one business could be selling drinks, water, and etc. But combined together, you would know what in that particular community. And a lot of people want to give back. And then you have the center. So you have all these businesses who want to give back, and you have the connections because you did the census report, like the caller said. And then we know, well, this is a TV store, this is a fridge store, this is Beauty Bakery. You know, there might be some events coming up, might need some little bread, but you don't have no connection with Beauty Bakery. But when you do your census report, and you know that it's a part of the report that's supposed to go as community-based, and you use the community-based information to tap into these businesses in the community. And some of these businesses, like the caller says, wants to give back, and they can give back immensely to the wider general public, and especially in the community. And the caller really is talking about going back how we were 60, 50 years ago when we were community-minded, and we were island-like people, you know, and I'm always going to say this. Caller, you're so correct. I think it's time for us to go back to being an island people. We have gone to being a concrete jungle, and because we have gone to concrete, because we've taken on the identity of the concrete jungle, we have lost our island identity. To prove it, you know, we have 700 islands, 700 keys. But you've heard how many Bahamian people are drowning in the ocean because they can't swim. Okay? It's impossible. We're supposed to be the #1 swim capital in the world because we're surrounded by water. Okay? When it comes to the fishing industry, I think that out of all our natural resources, there's no bigger industry than the fishing industry because we have tuna here, we have sardine here, we have all kind of fish here. And we even touch the iceberg. We have billions of dollars of resources in the fishing industry in the country, okay, that we have not even touched yet in this Commonwealth of Bahamas. It's bigger than our Aragonite, okay? So the caller is completely correct. And I want to congratulate all the callers who are doing a fantastic job calling in on the show and giving good ideas. And that caller was on spot on when he talked about use the resources. And he's also speaking about bringing that community family life back together and let the community, you know, help build up their community with community centers and green spaces and etc. And then be able to assist those less fortunate because they do a census so we know who would live in the community. And if they don't have food to eat that particular night, until we could provide it, they could go and use this special spot that the gentleman talked about that was put in place by the local businesses and the community and the urban renewal, which would always be a part of it because you know it's going to be in the inner city community. So it's going to be a combination of community-minded people, government, small businesses in the community. Yeah. So the caller before, the gentleman who called in earlier, he talked about humanitarian, you know, when I was talking about how we sign on to CARICOM and how we sign on to UNESCO and we sign on to these international laws dealing with humanitarian. So the caller was saying, you know, I'm here talking this type of way, you know, and how we should treat illegal immigrants in the country, and that based on how we treat them when they are at the detention center and how we treat them by our laws and regulation here by international standard. So the gentleman was saying, well, a person like me who are being in custody, how was I treated humanely? And he's correct. You know, I've watched the abuse of Bahamian nationals in the police station. I've seen it in prison. I've seen it on the streets, you know, with the abuse, you know, the verbal abuse, the physical abuse, you know, the punishment that people receive inside the prison. The stories that was told to me from people who come in and out of prison, you know, who would talk to me and give me the inside stuff, you know. Just recently, the police, the prison commissioner, Mr. Clare, he recently stated that a prisoner who died in the prison 2-3 weeks ago, he was killed by an ex-prisoner at the prison. So what the caller is saying is actually true, because that's someone who get killed in the prison. Are they being treated humanely at the prison? Listen to the Commissioner of Police at the Ministry of National Security Advisory Committee Board. He also talked about a lot of incident happening at the prison, and he was upfront, and he's an honest commissioner. I think he's going to do a wonderful job at the prison. And he stated that the prison itself needs to be revamped, and we need to change the minds of the inmates in the prison, because they are acting like animals, and we need to get them with programs to make them civilized and for them to be able to re-enter society. So yes, caller, you're correct on your assumption of getting the community involved and getting the local business and doing your data report and doing your census report, and using that as a base to help the less fortunate in the country. And the caller was correct when he talked about, we as Bahamians have not been treated humanely when we're in police custody, in many cases. And it's been happening for many, many years. So he don't want us to be talking about persons coming here in Abaco. The minister talked about 10,000. So if 10,000 illegal immigrants are in Abaco, and we have about 10,000 Bahamians, so we have a population of 20,000 or more people over there. During that devastating hurricane 3 years ago, and I listened to the former prime minister, and he spoke on the matter. And he said, many people said there were thousands of people. Some people estimated 10,000, 20,000 people who have got killed in a hurricane that devastated Freeport and Abaco. And many people who were there personally said that bodies were just everywhere. They were walking over bodies, and bodies was just everywhere. And then we listened to a report from the Bahamas government, which at that time was the leader of the country. He stated that, it was a few hundred, persons who got swept away. But many persons who did the interview and was talking, they were saying it was thousands. So many speculate and said that, at that time, the current prime minister, the Honorable Hubert Alexander Minnis, was lying to the Bahamian public, and that Abaco had a population of over 30 to 40,000 illegal immigrants who were living there on the Family Island. But as leader of the country, he didn't want the Bahamas to know that there was so much illegal people living in Abaco and in the Bahamas at large who were here illegally. But the authorities were not doing their job. The immigration department was not doing their job. The Royal Bahamas Police Force wasn't doing their job. And the Defense Force wasn't doing this job. And the Minister of Immigration of these departments were not doing their job. Because it relates to that. Because there's no way possible right now in Abaco that we could have a population of over 10,000 illegal immigrants when we had an injunction on Abaco. So it means to me that the illegal immigrants, and I got to understand why the caller is saying, don't talk about humanitarian, because the people are coming in, they're breaking our laws right in our face, injunctions on in Abaco, and these people still are building their homes and building them shantytowns without no regulation, without no respect for a court injunction. So I don't understand, and I understand why the caller said that, and he's completely correct, because we have an injunction. And if I, Valentino Brown, when I get someone to go to the court from the judge, I have to go. All right? I have to go. And I have to abide by that court order. So if your people come into our country, when the government of the Bahamas makes a stamp and makes a statement, say that, hey, this is an injunction. The government couldn't break down no more homes because of the injunction. So the government, who followed the law, could not break down those homes in Abaco because a judge made an injunction. So the Bahamas government had to stop. But the illegal immigrants who come in overseas broke the law, broke the court order, right? And still decide to build. They say they increased from 50 acres to how much? From 50 homes to how many homes? With this injunction. So the call is correct. The Bahamas government has to step up. I see the Honorable Prime Minister stating that we don't have a crisis. Well, Mr. Prime Minister, we have a crisis because the injunction that was passed in Abaco stating that the government cannot break down no shantytown home in Abaco and that the illegal immigrants who are there cannot build. And they're building. The government stopped. Abiding by the laws, the government stopped from breaking down homes, but the people who are here illegally, they are continuing to build. So we do have a crisis. We have a crisis where people are bold and they're breaking the law, and we need for the law to be enforced in this country. Quite frankly, we can't do nothing. They say we can't. We can if we enforce the law. Okay, let's take this call. Go ahead, caller. You're on Inside the Inner City.
Hey, Scroogy, how you doing, man?
I'm fine. Good night to you.
Good night to you. Just tuned into your show maybe no more than 3 minutes ago.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, I just came off a show on another station just a couple minutes ago.
Yes, sir.
Addressing the very same thing almost the very same thing that you're talking to right here. And I can say this much. This immigration, the immigration on the whole, as far as this country is concerned, is a hot button topic. It's on just about everybody's lips, and it's one that must be addressed.
Yes, sir.
It's one that must be resolved, and unfortunately, there are some persons who are Bahamians who are perpetrating this stuff, harboring, and doing all kind of other illegal activities. Whereas there's also some who are here among us who should not be here, and causing a whole lot of strife as far as our country is concerned. Let me try to put this in very simple terms for our Bahamian people to understand. First and foremost, to come into somebody's country unannounced and unaware to its authorities is criminal by law.
Yes, it's by law.
You talk about the hurricane, Hurricane Dorian, as it applies to Abaco and Grand Bahama in particular, but Abaco very specifically. You see, our agencies have fallen down on the job because, first and foremost, we have laws on the books. We don't need no more laws on the books.
No, we don't.
We have these agencies who are not carrying out the mandate that they're supposed to do. Every person that is in the boundaries of the Bahamas, there's supposed to be some documentation, some paper trail to say who's here in the country, who's not here in the country. Yes, I understand that we must be humane to each other. But if these persons are not humane to observe the laws of this country...
Point well taken.
How do they expect us to be humane to them?
An injunction?
You cannot...
Yes, you're right. Go ahead, sir.
I tell people, how is it we are one of the very few countries in this hemisphere that award legal statuses to persons who are illegally entered our country, and it creates a quandary. I have friends from the same diaspora who are actually complaining about Spotlight that these persons who came into the country illegally are now casting on them. I want you to listen very carefully what I'm saying here.
I'm listening quite attentively.
Organic Bahamians are in an uproar because our laws have been circumvented, not just by the illegals, but many of us who hold in these high offices. They're aiding and abetting this nonsense.
Yes, I agree.
And we're frustrated and we're fed up because we've been addressing this stuff over decades. We've seen our parents address this over decades, and our leaders are not doing the mandate that they should be doing in order to bring some resolution to the matters that the Bahamian people have been talking about. How much longer must we as Bahamians continue to talk about this? We talk about our Constitution. On the previous show I just came off just now, we talk about how is it that let me put it to you like this. The illegal migrant in this country right now knows more about our Constitution than the average Bahamian does.
Yes, because they have a organization.
Would you really be comfortable with that knowledge? Because I'm going to tell you.
I agree. They have the organization.
In order for them to take advantage of your system,
they have
to study the system. And I can tell you, they have legal minds, not just here in the Bahamas, but also in that country who study the laws of the Bahamas.
Yes.
They know how to circumvent them. They know how to use them to their advantage. And that's why they come here. We have weak, lackluster leaders who are not doing an agency, that are not doing the mandate of what they are there for.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, I can't put it no simpler. We as Bahamians, we are fed up. We are fed up of these political parties who come to government and they promise on the campaign trail that they will take care of this, they'll take care of that from day one and this, that, the next. And then when day 100 comes, the same matters, the low-hanging fruit that should have been taken care of from day one, still have not been taken care of. So we can't continue kicking the can down the road because this is why the people look at us as if we are lackluster and nothing is going to happen.
Yes.
And I mean, that's just putting it plain and simple. You know, how are we going to fix this problem? I'll close on this one point.
Go ahead, sir.
I thank you for allowing me to run on right now.
No, go ahead.
Because it is hot with a whole lot of people.
Yeah, everyone's
in order for a lot of the social ills in this country to be resolved, whether you want to believe it or not, the crux of it falls on the illegal migration and our immigration laws.
Yes.
I believe if we fix them,
yes,
the crime level,
yes,
the societal ills that we are encountering. I'm not saying that it's just them causing it. No. We have a few of those who say that they are Bahamians. They're also causing some of the problems.
Yes, I agree.
The crux of this comes from systems that needs to be fixed and they're not being addressed and resolved. We must fix the problem.
Yes, sir. You're so right. You did
Thanks
a wonderful
for taking
job.
my call.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to me because information is very important for the general population. It's good that we know what's going on. We're onto that. And they're using our law against us and they're benefiting greatly. And we cannot no longer sustain it. There's too much money leaving the country, going abroad, and that's hurting us. And like I said, I'm not concerned about those who are here who are become Bahamian citizens. I'm talking about those who are coming on those sloops, running from a crime-infested, dangerous island. And, you never know what they'd bring over here. Come over here with that same attitude and set up in your country, break all your laws, then they could go run because they're not in the system. They could run. We don't know who they is. The producers will be able to take a break. So please don't go nowhere. I'll be right back on Guardian Radio 96.9 after the break.
Trying to turn my dollar to 100 grand.
Love the show? Want to give your support? Become a sponsor today. Call 302-2300 for our rates and packages. That's 302-2300. Become a sponsor on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
The Access Accelerator Small Business Development Center is here to help small businesses throughout the entire Bahamas. To better serve you, we've made it easier to contact us. Call 461-7232, WhatsApp 359-0626 or 359-2394, email helpdesk@spdcbahamas.com, or submit a ticket when you visit our help center at accessaccelerator.org. The Access Accelerator, empowering small business.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
La 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 la. La 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 la. La la la.
Good night. We are back on Guardian Radio 96.9. I'm your host, Valentino Brown, a.k.a. Scoochie, Scrooge, or Scroogey, and many other nicknames. I hope you're enjoying the show. And like I said, I don't promote hate. I just talking what it is. There's some things going on in our country that's been going on for so long that it's draining everything out the Bahamian population here in the country. We have had thousands of people, with employment, with gaining healthcare, our educational system. There's nothing wrong with that. But we reach a point now where we are suffering as Bahamians who live in this country. Many of us don't have house. Many of us don't have car. Many of us are not working because we can't find no work, because with our influx of persons coming in the country legally, they're working for less than nothing. So if I have a choice to get a foreign national, and could give them $120 to lay 300 or 400 blocks, why not? But at the same time, that's hurting us because that could be for a Bahamian guy who can help his family. So a lot of the money is leaving out the country. Many of these persons get their funds. They take a little bit and they keep here, but they send a lot home. So the money that is leaving the country, I'm talking with the Chinese also. I'm not just talking with Asian, but it's a vast majority. And Jamaica does the same thing. When money is accumulated in your country, but then it's shipped out. It's shipped out. See, money is supposed to circulate and stay in the community and the country, and that's what we call economy. But if the money is going out, like what's happening in Africa over the years, Africa's trying to rebrand. All the natural resources got stolen out of Africa, and all of those European countries, they got rich off the gold, the oil, the aragonite, or whatever it is that the country has to offer, diamonds and whatever. The Europeans benefited from that. But little was put into Africa, and Africa's trying to regain themselves. It's the same thing. Your people coming here for a better life, but they're here and they're gathering up all the jobs, what's supposed to be for Bahamians, what's supposed to be for Bahamians. And listen, we had a job fair where we had 1,506 job at job fair. They had a job fair 3 months prior. You had must see but the same amount of people being there looking for work. Then we had a job fair under the Progressive Party 2 months prior to that. And in those 3 jobs fair, you would see close to over 2,000 people looking for work. Okay? So that's how much Bahamian people are out of work, and many people are out of work now because illegal immigrants who come in Abaco, they're settling now with their family, and they are going to disperse throughout the country. They're going to find a little spot, and they're going to find a little jobs, and they're going to find their family and friends, right? And there's nothing wrong with it, but there's something wrong with it with us because it's hurting us. We have 5,000 kids coming to the school every year, okay? And they can't find no work. It's the reason why. It's the reason why. Employees could pick and choose. And to hire a Bahamian, I could hire a foreigner because I could take advantage of him. And it's wrong. But people are using it to their benefits. And it's wrong. It's wrong. We're going to take this last call. Caller, you see if you could give me over 2 minutes, please, because I'm really getting close to closing out the show. Go ahead, caller. Good night.
Yeah. It's good, in reference to this injunction and
go ahead.
The dilemma we face today, to me, basically, it was by design. I remember I always call it the fraudulent shantytown committee, but they had where they were doing a mass census on shantytowns and the numbers they came up with just before the Orient.
Yes, sir.
Saying that, most of the Bahamians are kind of, that's what they wanted to say. But to me, it seemed like a cabal and it's a plot because when I look at how the courts is all tied up, the irony today, Mr. Fred Smith, for all what's going down from time the PLP came in, and he ain't come out yet. All right? So it tells me something. It tells me that the whole judiciary, when the FNM was in power.
You're right,
You had Carl Bessel.
You're right, sir. They're speaking all on this for two.
The Attorney General,
you ain't have Fred Smith mode the QC for
two?
No,
you had Carl Bessel as the Attorney
for two,
General,
sir?
right? You had Dion Folks as the Minister of Labor.
Yes, sir.
Right? And Dion Folks, his kin is from Haiti, right? In power. You had Frankie Campbell, you had a whole entourage. Even ministers said, well, he probably had affiliates of, okay? And it's as Bahamians, just be careful who we put in the House Assembly to conduct our business because to me, as a Bahamian, because Frankie Campbell came up with 2 passports and all, even though it's unconstitutional for a person to show 2 passports, if you're a Bahamian, you have to deny whatever passport or your country, your former country, you have to just put that down and pledge to be Bahamian. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
It wasn't no 2 passports.
Dual citizenship.
The whole thing is it's a plot, man. And because all the leniency and the code word.
You're right.
The code word is always be humane.
Yeah.
Why like you know what? Why like the caller said, you know,
You're right.
When the authorities like they apprehend behemoths or even approach behemoths.
Boy, we get cut ass in the station.
Cut ass. you get treated less than like verbally.
Yes,
as an adult.
physical abuse, verbal abuse.
To basically like to see where you are mentally, because it's like, well, the average person, if somebody talks to them in a derogatory way, they done ready to defend themselves and whatever, and that's what the police looking for, to lock you up.
Yes, sir. You're so
Yes,
right.
they call it disorderly behavior, because the police will say, well, you know, at least that's doing stuff to really to get you all fired up. But when you don't get fired up and things like that, well, they probably come down off the cloud and be more humane. You see what I'm saying? They just do that to feel people out, to see who's who. That's the part of it. You know that.
Yes, sir. Because a valid point you were making, you were saying they're using that for smoke screen, because you
Yeah,
were
man,
making
that's-
because the
yeah, man,
injunction, the government is living by the injunction. They're living up to the injunction.
But that injunction to me as a citizen, right? That whole thing, and even like even the judge and all this confusion now, they don't want that judge this and that and this and that thing,
Judge
because they feel as if it was probably forced upon her to do, because you got to take all this, and the judiciary is supposed to be like, I'm talking about, free from government interference. Even though the attorney general, he ain't supposed to have that kind of authority to tell judges what to do, per se, or nationally, it's as such. That talking about national security detriment. And you have people like these two men are supposed to do, they supposed to have a commission inquiry with this in a way.
Yes, sir.
Because ain't no way. Because when you're looking at it, right, you're putting a lot of behemoths' lives in harm's way.
Yes.
You're putting a lot of behemoth children's lives in harm's way. All the gangs in the school, and Mr. Jeff Lloyd.
Poor Lord.
Okay? To come out, every student could come to school, you have to verify if you legal or illegal. Just come to school because we signed treaty. How criminal is that? You know, another thing too, right? You know, what about Clarence A. Bean? He was an educator, right?
Yes, sir.
And he was like one of the best educators in this country, right?
Yes, sir.
And Jeff Lloyd is educated too, right?
Yes, sir.
You think he's as hard as Clarence A. Bean? I don't think so.
No,
That's why he destroyed Clarence A. Bean building.
That's why you have a building
He
named
destroyed that building and then talking about give to the college of bombers. Let me show you something. Look at the Ministry of Waste building. Pristine! And that building been in the 70s, and it's the same, all until the same time.
Yes, sir.
Huh? Those structures, they're never supposed to be torn down.
Yes, I agree.
Just-
If it's
just-
maintained
just-
properly, it's supposed to be maintained properly, but they
Yeah,
fail
man,
to
but all
maintain
they
it.
need is the roof.
Yes, you're right.
Put a roof on it. When they with the flat, and they get, because you know what? As a builder, right?
Yeah.
And all these flat roof systems they got running and thing like that, they just put on a flat.
Yeah,
You can't put that flat.
Yes, you're
That got to
correct.
be like a dome.
Yes,
So the water runs straight up on all around.
yes. I
And then you
understand.
can put that's just kick it, but then that's where the problem. But deeper than that, put a roof on it.
Yes.
I noticed the building across from the university, that's Harry Seymour Library,
Yes,
the
sir.
bank, right? But these 6 stories up, right?
Yes, sir.
They put a roof. Finally, put a roof on it to solve all the problems, to save the building. Huh?
Yes.
You know. Hey, in the closing, right? You know what? All them derelict building and thing what they got downtown from that time, like a fixture and thing like that, would ready to fall and kill people before they even started. They need to do something about that, you know.
Yes,
And people be walking under them.
Yes, you're correct.
You know, the balconies, wooden balconies that are rotten and things, plywood and all kind of stuff dropping down and things. The reason for someone to die, and then we got to do
Yes,
something
sir.
about it. They need to be proactive. The people that own those properties and things like that, they need to take that from them.
Yes, sir. You did it. Yes.
No, seriously, man.
Thank you very much. You did a wonderful job.
Yeah, man. Bless up.
Thank you very much. Yes,
Yeah.
and he's correct. You know, all the callers are on point here tonight. You know, I want to just congratulate them on a job well done. They were not insulting, even though they were talking, but they had they presented themselves from the way they talk, even though we were talking about something that's very delicate. But we are defending ourselves as a country because we have nowhere else to go in the country, and we have people coming here using our healthcare system, our educational system, but they're doing it illegally, and it's too much screen for us now. We can't take it no more. NASA's done overpopulated, and I already said that we have to find a way how we can at least get 100 to 200,000 people from living in Nassau, New Providence. We have to get Nassau, New Providence, with a population probably 250,000 people to 200,000 people. The rest, we have to utilize the family island, and we can't have foreigners come in, building shanty villages in these islands. These family islands are for me and you, my brother. We live in an archipelago of 700 islands, 700 keys. Why can't I invest in Cat Island to buy a small piece of property or Andros or Freeport or wherever it is, once I start to accumulate some money? You trying to tell me I can't have a second home? Suppose Hurricane Dorian hit like in Abaco. I can live from Abaco if I have a second or third home, and I could go live in Maguana because the hurricane wouldn't be able to affect me, or I could leave and go someplace else. That's what these family islands for. The population of the Bahamas is too big here, national problems. We have to find opportunities on the family, and we can't let the foreigners get it. Okay? We can't let them get it. Because when they go there, they destroy the trees. They destroy the water. You understand? They destroy the natural beauty of nature. They cut down all the trees and make coal. These are things that the God himself tell you not to do. We don't need to cut down a tree to build no coal, all right? Trees is very important for the ecosystem. And when you have people who come in with this poverty thing and they're used to the way they used to live in back in Port-au-Prince or wherever they live in, like the Chinese coming over eating, and we seen in the video they eating dogs, etc. They come in here and you cut down the pine trees and pollute the water, and we get cholera and all these stuffs, and then people, some come with obeah, to the land, and if we are a Christian nation and then we allow certain things, and these things are done because the people are here illegally, so they're here illegally and they're desperate and they're breaking all the laws, and we can't allow this to accumulate in our land, all right? If you're going to come here the right way. If those are here, we need to regulate them, and we need to look at giving out citizenship. We need to look at giving out work permit. Citizenship right now should be the hardest thing to get for anyone right now who's a foreigner, unless they have to go through the proper channel right now. There shouldn't be issue of passports the way we've been given issue of passport over the years. We have to give account. We have to use the law from 1973 that we had here, from 1973, and decide who's Bahamian or not. Those who are not can still be here, but they could be residents. Those who are here were breaking the law and coming here illegally, they either could get some type of, if they're here and they don't apply for citizenship, but we have a system in place, we can help them along the road. If not, those who come in on the ships and boat and they're here illegally, we have to ship them back home. Quite frankly, we can't take it no more in this country. All right? The Prime Minister, his response, and then he respond on it. Let me see what the Prime Minister had to say before I close on the show. Let me see. Real quick. I get it right, y'all. Going right now. Prime Minister Philip Davis said his administration is looking on how best to deal with the shantytowns in Abaco that are not covered by an existing court injunction. So that means injunctions on the Pacific part of Abaco, but there are a lot of illegal immigrants who are building houses where the injunctions in place. So he's trying to figure out what he's going to do with those who are building on property that are not a part of an injunction. So the caller was saying this, what you mean what you're going to do, Mr. Prime Minister? What you mean what you're going to do? Follow the law, just like how you follow the law when we was gangsters and you all take our Constitution right. I used to get locked up on the 22nd of Christmas, and I'd be locked up for 2-3 days for nothing, just because they said I was a problem to society and they didn't want me to go to Junkanoo, okay? And they broke my Constitution rights. But we are foreigners coming here, right? Building houses illegally and not a Bahamian citizen, or not even been living here for 20, 30 years. Just come and build. When injunctions in the country. What we need to do, we need to have Defense Force deployed. We need to have the Ministry of Immigration deployed. And we have the Royal Bahamas deployed to Abaco, where they be stationed permanently to make sure that anyone who builds any house on the injunction part of the property, or anyone comes there illegally, if you don't have your proper identification, verifying you're either a resident or a citizen of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, you can be held for not having your proper identification. Because this law is going to pass. So we need to pass an Abaco that put the Defense Force, put the Immigration Department, put the police there, and let them start to survey Abaco on a daily basis and find out who is illegal from who ain't illegal, And make sure that everyone has their identification. If you don't have identification, you better have proof of identification either to the person who employ you. Other than that, you get shipped back. So we need stationary police there in Abaco. We need stationary defense force officers. We need stationary immigration officers in Abaco. And they're going to remain there until we get this matter of illegal immigrants coming to the Bahamas under control. It's a problem to all us people. Too much money is leaving the country. We have people coming here, we don't know what they're going to bring to our country. They're going to destroy our environment, right? And then what do we have? Then we have no country because they done breaking the law. So, Mr. Brave Davis, you wondering what you're going to do for those people who are building outside the injunction limit, demolish, and send back home. Simple as that. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm Valentino Brown, host of the talk show Inside the City. My producer today is Ali Roll. And to all the callers, I'll see you next week. And you did a very wonderful job on Guardian Radio 96.9. And remember, I don't preach it. I just know that something is happening in my country that's been happening a long time. And many of us are frustrated because the reason why, because we see the laws being broken. And we're seeing our leaders seems to be taking the other side on this matter. And we as citizens get persecuted to the full extent of the law and we pay all the taxes. So that's why a lot of us are upset. Brave Davis put the Immigration Department, the Defense Force Department, and the Royal Bahamas Police Force stationary in Abaco and demolish all the houses that has been erected that should not be erected in a place that is being designated a hurricane disaster site. So no one should be building unless they have the proper permits from government and authorization from government. Anyone else? Break down and ship back to the country that you came from. Sorry to say, we're going to have to do it. We're being overrun. So I'll see you next week on Guardian Radio. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm Valentino Brown, a.k.a. Scoochie or Scrooge or Scroogey. See you next week on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. And before I go, I just remember from the Leader of the Opposition, remember, each one, reach one. If you want to join this wonderful organization, get in contact with the Leader of the Opposition, okay? Mr. Michael Pintard. Summer program we started that he feels is going to be beneficial to the Bahamian people. So please be a part of it. And we'll see you next week on Inside in the City.
If you find fire, you definitely find smoke. Payton, bro. Boy, I from Payton, bro.
Ah, my son, that boy, what happened? Huh? Straight to the Payton, boy, from Payton. Where you doing, man? All out. Again?
I represent Bahamian people. I from Nassau, Bahamas, big up Payton, bro. Boy, I from Payton, bro. Don't take no back talk, no bribe or no joke. If you find fire, you definitely find smoke. Payton, bro. Boy, I from Payton.